Arthur, prospective car buyer, swiped his phone to a 30-second video of a man telling him how to crush car salesmen with one sentence. He smirked and said to himself, "I will destroy that sales guy tomorrow." The next morning at the dealership, he sat across from a veteran salesman named Frank. Arthur slammed his hand on the desk. "I know your invoice price. I'm giving you $2,000 below it, or I walk, and don't you try those. Let me check with my manager tactics on me." Frank blinked. He recognized the script instantly. He also knew Arthur didn't know about hidden costs and that this hybrid model had a 6-month waiting list. Frank smiled an accommodating smile. "Well, Arthur, you clearly know your stuff. I can't do that price on this car, but since you're a savvy buyer, I have a special model just for insiders." 10 minutes later, Arthur was signing papers for a stripped-down, previous year model with a bloated dealer add-on package, convinced he had outsmarted the system. As Arthur drove off the lot in a vehicle worth far less than he paid, Frank and his manager watched from the window, chuckling as they split a massive commission. Arthur adjusted his mirrors, thoroughly pleased with his own genius, completely blind to the fact that he was one of the easiest targets around.
Take that, you piece of junk! It's just sparking everywhere! Just keep hitting it!
Have you ever met someone who is, to say the least, spectacularly bad at something, but they're convinced they're a genius?
Only me! You don't want a taut rope outside your front door. It'll hinder your progress from house to street.
Oh, yeah. Thanks.
Or maybe you've started a new hobby, felt like a pro after 1 week, and then realized a month later you are actually crap at it. So welcome to the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's the psychological quirk that explains why the least competent people are often the most confident, while the experts are usually second-guessing themselves. It's not made up in social media, it's a real glitch in the human condition. Our story begins in 1995 with a man named MacArthur Wheeler. He robbed 2 banks in broad daylight without a mask. When police caught him, he was shocked. He kept saying, "But I wore the juice." Wheeler believed that because lemon juice works as invisible ink on paper, rubbing it on his face would make him invisible to security cameras. He wasn't crazy. He was just confidentially incorrect. This inspired social psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger. They supposed that people who lack the skills to do something also lack the very skills needed to judge their own performance. In short, if you're incompetent, you're too incompetent to know you're incompetent. To really understand this effect, we have to look at the anatomy of the curve. It's not a straight line, it's a roller coaster. Let's break down the 4 key landmarks on this journey of self-delusion and discovery. The peak of Mount Stupid. At the very beginning, your confidence is at an all-time high despite having almost zero experience. Why? Because you have just enough information to form an opinion, but not enough to see why that opinion might be wrong. Think of the armchair football coach or the person who watches one documentary on cryptocurrency and immediately starts giving investment advice. This is Mount Stupid. It's a dangerous place because you don't know what you don't know. In technical terms, your ability to think about your own thinking is offline. As you keep practicing, the curve takes a sharp, brutal dive. This is the Valley of Despair. You've finally gained enough knowledge to realize how vast the field actually is. If Mount Stupid is, "I know everything," the Valley of Despair is, "I will never understand this." This is the most common place for people to give up. The gap between your perceived ability and the actual standard of excellence feels impossible to bridge. But remember, the pain you feel here is actually your brain's accuracy software finally kicking in. If you don't quit, you start the long, slow climb. This isn't a vertical jump, it's a grind. This is the slope of enlightenment. Your confidence starts to rise again, But this time, it's anchored to reality. You're no longer guessing, you're building a foundation of known knowns. On this slope, you start to appreciate nuance. You stop looking for one-size-fits-all answers and start saying things like, well, it depends, or in certain contexts. Finally, you reach the plateau of sustainability. You are now a true expert. Interestingly, your confidence here is often lower than it was at the top of Mount Stupid. You're highly competent, but you're also acutely aware that there is always more to learn. Why does this happen? This happens because of a double problem. To be good at a task like grammar, you must understand the rules. If you do not know the rules, you will make mistakes. However, since you do not know those rules, you cannot see that you are doing anything wrong. This means you might think you are doing a great job simply because you don't know any better. At the same time, this affects experts in a different way. Experts often think they aren't that special because they assume that if a task is easy for them, it must be easy for everyone else. While beginners often have a false sense of greatness, experts often feel like they are not as skilled as they truly are. Now, a quick correction. The Dunning-Kruger effect doesn't mean stupid people think they're geniuses. It means that none of us are good at judging our own blind spots. We all have a Mount Stupid somewhere. Maybe it's your driving, your political takes, or your ability to grill a steak. The Dunning-Kruger effect is a reminder to stay humble. The moment you think you've mastered a complex subject is usually the exact moment you've stopped learning. So, how do you avoid the trap? Seek feedback. Be your own harshest critic. And most importantly, keep learning, because the more you know, the more you realize how much you have left to discover. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the flaws of the human brain, hit the like button. It helps the algorithm realize I'm not just shouting into the void. I'll see you in the next one. Stay curious.